What if I told you that the weakest person in the room was actually the most dangerous? That the nurse everyone bullied could have kept soldiers alive under machine gun fire? That her trembling hands weren't shaking from fear, but from the weight of holding back? This is the story of Anna Cole. And I promise you, you've never heard anything like it. Northgate Regional Hospital smelled like every hospital you've ever been in. Antiseptic, recycled air. That weird mix of cafeteria food and industrial cleaner that somehow becomes invisible after your first week. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting that particular shade of white that makes 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. feel exactly the same. Machines beeped their eternal rhythm. Somewhere down the hall, a patient called for a nurse. Somewhere else, a doctor barked orders. This was Portland's busiest Level 1 trauma center. Controlled chaos. Organized madness. The kind of place where competence was currency and confidence was armor. And Anna Cole had neither. At least, that's what everyone thought. She moved through the ER like a ghost in pale blue scrubs, thin, pale, eyes that never quite met yours. When she walked, it was with her shoulders slightly hunched, as if she was trying to take up less space in the world. Her voice, on the rare occasions anyone heard it, was barely above a whisper. She apologized constantly. For everything. For things that weren't her fault. For things that weren't even problems. Sorry, she'd murmur, stepping aside when someone rushed past. My fault, she'd whisper, even when it clearly wasn't. The other nurses had a name for her, though they thought she couldn't hear. Dead weight Anna. Have you ever felt that small? Like no matter what you do, you're just taking up space? Like you're constantly in the way of people who actually matter? Dr. Marcus Chun was the first to really nail down the pecking order. 6 weeks into Anna's employment, he'd already perfected his eye roll whenever she entered a room. He was a senior resident, 32, sharp, the kind of doctor who'd graduated top of his class and never let you forget it. He had that particular brand of cruelty that comes from competence. He wasn't mean for fun. He was mean because he genuinely believed some people didn't deserve to be there. Anna was one of those people. Cole, he'd snap, not even looking up from his tablet. Are you going to stand there, or are you going to actually do something useful? She'd been restocking a crash cart. Quietly, efficiently, doing exactly what she was supposed to do. Sorry, she'd whisper and move faster. The other nurses would exchange looks. Some pitying, some annoyed. A few, the ones who'd been there long enough to become hard, openly contemptuous. How did she even get hired? Sarah Jenkins muttered one afternoon in the break room, stirring her coffee with more violence than necessary. Sarah was loud, confident, the kind of nurse who could handle 3 critical patients and still find time to gossip. I mean, she can barely look at people. She jumps at loud noises. Yesterday, Dr. Richardson raised his voice and she literally flinched. Maybe she's got, I don't know, anxiety or something, offered Tom, one of the newer nurses. He was still soft. Still thought kindness mattered. Then she shouldn't be in the ER, Sarah shot back. This isn't a therapy center. People die here when you freeze up. They didn't know Anna was standing just outside the break room door. Frozen. Listening. She'd come for coffee. She left with nothing. That night, she ate dinner alone in her car in the parking garage. A cold sandwich from the hospital cafeteria, sitting in the dark, watching the lights of the city through her windshield. Her hands shook as she unwrapped the sandwich. They always shook now. But once upon a time, they hadn't. The human mind is a strange thing when it comes to trauma. It can hold 2 truths at the same time, even when those truths seem impossible together. Anna Cole was terrified of loud noises. Anna Cole had once worked through a mortar attack without flinching. Anna Cole couldn't meet a doctor's eyes. Anna Cole had stared down a field commander and refused to let him move a patient she knew would die. Anna Cole's hands trembled when she held a coffee cup. Anna Cole's hands had been perfectly steady when she'd performed an emergency thoracotomy with a pocket knife and duct tape because the medevac was 15 minutes out and the kid bleeding on the sand had maybe 3. You see, 8 years ago, Anna Cole wasn't Anna Cole, the nervous civilian nurse. She was Captain Anna Cole, Special Operations Combat Medic, attached to units whose names were classified and whose missions didn't officially exist. She'd kept men alive in places that would haunt your nightmares. She'd designed emergency trauma protocols that were now standard in forward operating bases across 3 continents. She'd held dying boys, and they were boys, some of them, barely old enough to buy beer, and promised them they'd make it home. Most of them did. Some of them didn't. And the ones who didn't, they were the reason her hands shook now. But nobody at Northgate Regional Hospital knew any of that. They saw the trembling, the silence, the averted eyes, and they filled in the blanks with their own story. Weak, anxious, probably shouldn't be here. It's funny, isn't it? How wrong we can be about people. How we look at someone struggling and assume we know why. The thing about PTSD, and Anna had never been officially diagnosed, never went to therapy, never filed the paperwork because that would have meant admitting something was wrong, is that it doesn't make you weak. It makes you tired. Bone tired. Soul tired. The kind of tired that comes from your nervous system being stuck in survival mode for so long it forgot how to relax. Every loud noise was a threat. Every sudden movement was danger. Every moment of stillness was just waiting for the next bad thing. So Anna stayed quiet, stayed small, tried to become invisible because invisible meant safe. Except invisible also meant alone. At night, in her tiny studio apartment, she'd sit on the floor with her back against the wall. Always the wall, never exposed, and try to breathe. She'd close her eyes and see sand. Smell copper and gunpowder. Hear screaming that the passage of years had done nothing to diminish. There was one memory that came back more than the others. His name had been Jackson. 23. Specialist. Shrapnel wound to the chest. She'd worked on him for 40 minutes while the firefight raged around them, her hands inside his chest cavity, manually compressing his heart because there was no other option. She'd felt his heartbeat against her palm. Felt it slow. Felt it stop. She'd promised him he'd make it home. She'd lied. And now, every time she closed her eyes, she felt that final heartbeat fade against her hand. So she didn't sleep much. What would you do? If every time you closed your eyes, you saw the faces of people you couldn't save? Would you tell someone? Reach out? Or would you just survive day by day, trying to outrun ghosts that never get tired? Week 8 at Northgate. Thursday, 2:47 p.m. Anna was refilling supplies in Trauma Bay 3, moving with that same quiet efficiency, when the call came over the radio. Multi-vehicle MVA, Interstate 84. Multiple critical. ETA 7 minutes. All hands. The ER transformed instantly. The organized chaos became organized urgency. Nurses ran. Doctors shouted orders. Equipment was wheeled into position. This was what Level 1 trauma centers existed for. The moments when seconds mattered and perfect execution meant someone's mother, father, son, daughter got to go home. Anna pressed herself against the wall as people rushed past. Staying out of the way. Being invisible. The ambulances arrived in waves. The first 3 patients were standard trauma, bad but manageable. Broken bones, lacerations, 1 potential internal bleed. The team moved like a machine. Dr. Richardson, the attending, 56, gray-haired, brilliant but arrogant, directed traffic with the confidence of 30 years' experience. Then patient 7B arrived. Male, mid-30s, driver of the 3rd vehicle. Moderate impact. Alert and oriented. Complaining of chest pain and shoulder discomfort. Vitals were stable. Good pulses. No obvious external trauma. Probable contusion and maybe a fractured clavicle, Dr. Richardson announced, glancing at the chart. Get him imaged and prepped for transfer to ortho. Routine. Standard. Textbook. Anna was in the corner, restocking, when they wheeled patient 7B past her. And something clicked. It was nothing she could name. Not yet. Just a whisper in the back of her mind. The part that had kept soldiers alive when the textbooks ran out. She glanced at the patient. He was talking coherent. But there was something about how he held his chest. The way his breathing hitched, not random but patterned. The slight grayness in his skin that could have been shock, but felt like something else. And his pupils. Just slightly off. Anna's heart rate spiked. Her hands, which had been shaking all day, suddenly stilled. She knew that presentation. No, that's impossible. Not here. Not in civilian. Cole. Dr. Richardson's voice cut through her thoughts. Are you going to stand there daydreaming or move? She was blocking the hallway. Hadn't even realized. Sorry, she whispered and stepped aside. They wheeled patient 7B toward imaging. Anna stood frozen, her mind racing. She was wrong. She had to be wrong. The odds of what she was thinking were astronomically small. This was Portland, Oregon, not Kandahar. This was a car accident, not a... But what if you're right? What if you're right and you say nothing? Her hands started shaking again. Hard. When does silence stop being safety and start being complicity? When do you break? When does the cost of staying invisible become higher than the cost of being seen? Anna stared down the hallway where they'd taken patient 7B. And for the first time in 8 weeks, she made a choice. She walked toward Trauma Bay 5. Her heart hammered. Every instinct screamed at her to stop, turn around, stay small, stay safe. Dr. Richardson was reviewing imaging orders. 2 nurses were prepping the transfer paperwork. Anna stopped in the doorway. "Don't move him." Her voice was quiet, but in the sudden silence of the room, it landed like a gunshot. Every head turned. Dr. Richardson looked at her like she'd sprouted a second head. "Excuse me?" Anna's hands were shaking so hard, she had to clasp them behind her back. But her voice, when she spoke again, was steadier. "Patient 7B. Don't transfer him. Don't move him. He needs a trauma surgeon. Now." Dr. Richardson's expression went from confused to furious in half a second. "Nurse Cole, I don't know what you think you're." His breathing pattern is consistent with progressive tension. Pupillary response suggests increased cranial pressure. And the mechanism of injury combined with the presentation. She swallowed hard. "He's going to crash. Soon." The room was silent. Dr. Richardson stared at her. That's absurd. His vitals are stable. You're talking about a diagnosis that requires imaging we haven't even. "I'm talking about what I can see," Anna interrupted. And there was something in her voice now, some edge that hadn't been there before. "And if you move him before surgical is standing by, he'll code in the elevator." "That's enough." Dr. Richardson's face was red. "You are a floor nurse with barely 2 months on staff, and you think you can diagnose complex trauma? Get out of my ER. Now." Anna didn't move. "I'm not wrong," she said quietly. And then, patient 7B's monitor alarm went off. Everyone spun. On the screen, they watched his blood pressure plummet. His heart rate spiked, then crashed. His oxygen saturation dropped like a stone. "He's coding," someone screamed. The room exploded into motion. Dr. Richardson ran for the trauma bay, nurses rushing behind him. Anna moved without thinking, not away but forward. Into the chaos. Into the place she'd spent 8 weeks avoiding. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. And for the first time in 8 weeks, Anna Cole was not invisible. Time is a funny thing in moments like these. It doesn't speed up or slow down, it fractures. Every second becomes a snapshot. A freeze frame. The kind of moment that gets burned into your memory, so deep you'll remember exactly where everyone was standing 20 years later. This was one of those moments. Patient 7B was dying. Not the slow, graceful decline you see in movies. The real thing. Violent. Desperate. His body fighting a war it couldn't win. The monitors screamed. His blood pressure was in freefall, systolic dropping below 60. His heart rate was erratic, climbing toward 200 before stuttering down to 40. His oxygen saturation was at 73 and dropping. Dr. Richardson reached the bedside first, his face a mask of controlled panic. The kind doctors learn to wear when everything's going to hell, but you can't let anyone see you break. "Get me a crash cart." Someone paged surgery. "Where's anesthesia?" Nurses swarmed. One started compressions. Another prepped medications. A third was on the phone, voice sharp and urgent. And Anna. Anna moved through the chaos like water. Not hesitant. Not invisible. She slipped between 2 nurses, her eyes locked on the patient. She was reading him, not the monitors, but him. The way his chest moved. The color of his skin. The distension of his neck veins. "It's not cardiac," she said. Dr. Richardson didn't even look at her. "Cole, I swear to God, if you don't get out of this room right now." "It's not cardiac," Anna repeated louder. "Look at his neck veins. Look at his tracheal deviation. It's a tension pneumothorax with possible pericardial involvement." The words came out clinical. Cold. Precise. Like someone had flipped a switch in her brain and 8 weeks of silence just evaporated. Dr. Richardson finally looked at her. Really looked at her. And something in her eyes made him pause. We don't have imaging that confirms." "You don't need imaging." Anna stepped closer. Her hands weren't shaking. "His left chest has decreased breath sounds. His trachea is deviated right. His jugular veins are distended. And if you don't decompress him in the next 90 seconds, he's going to arrest completely." The room had gone quiet except for the alarms. Everyone was staring at her. Would you bet your career on what you think you see? Your entire life on a diagnosis that goes against everything the senior doctor is saying? Dr. Richardson's jaw clenched. "You're suggesting I perform a needle decompression based on a floor nurse's visual assessment?" "I'm telling you that's what's keeping him alive," Anna said. And I'm telling you I've done this before. In nursing school? In Helmand Province. The words hung in the air like smoke. Dr. Richardson's eyes widened. What did you just? Patient 7B's heart rate flatlined. The monitor went from erratic beeping to one long, continuous tone. And Anna moved. She didn't ask permission. Didn't wait for orders. She grabbed the needle decompression kit from the crash cart. Hands steady, movements precise, and positioned herself at the patient's left side. Someone bag him, she said. Command, not request. And I need someone ready with a chest tube the second I decompress. A nurse grabbed the bag valve mask and started ventilating. Another nurse, Tom, the soft one who still believed in kindness, was already pulling out the chest tube kit. Dr. Richardson stood frozen, watching this mousy, trembling nurse he'd dismissed for 8 weeks suddenly move like she'd been born in trauma bays. Anna palpated the patient's chest, found the landmark, second intercostal space, midclavicular line, and didn't hesitate. She inserted the needle. There was a hiss of escaping air, the sound of pressure releasing. And then, patient 7B gasped. Not a breath. A gasp. The kind of involuntary, desperate sound your body makes when it's suddenly allowed to live again. The flatline monitor jumped. A rhythm appeared. Weak but there. He's back, someone whispered. Anna didn't stop. Chest tube. Now. He's still got air in the pleural space and possible blood in the pericardium. We need to. What the hell is going on in here? Everyone turned. Dr. Patricia Vance stood in the doorway. Chief of Emergency Medicine, 58, silver hair pulled back in a tight bun, the kind of woman whose presence made residents stand up straighter. Behind her was hospital security and a man in a dark suit Anna didn't recognize. Dr. Richardson found his voice first. Dr. Vance, we had a patient code, and Nurse Cole performed an unauthorized invasive procedure that saved his life, Tom interrupted. Everyone looked at him. He swallowed but didn't back down. She told us he was going to crash. Dr. Richardson didn't listen. She was right. She saved him. Dr. Vance's eyes moved from Tom to Anna. Is this true? Anna met her gaze. For the first time in 8 weeks, she didn't look away. Yes, ma'am. You performed a needle decompression without physician authorization? Yes, ma'am. Based on what diagnostic criteria? Clinical presentation and pattern recognition from previous combat trauma experience. The room went silent again. Dr. Vance's expression was unreadable. Previous combat trauma? Anna's jaw tightened. Yes, ma'am. There was a long, terrible pause. Then Dr. Vance turned to Dr. Richardson. Get that chest tube in. Stabilize him. Then page me a full report. She looked back at Anna. Cole. My office. Now. Anna nodded. She walked out of Trauma Bay 5, with Drive Vance, security, and the man in the suit following behind her. As she passed the nurse's station, she saw Sarah Jenkins standing there, mouth open, coffee cup forgotten in her hand. Anna didn't look back. The walk to Dr. Vance's office felt like a mile. No one spoke. Anna's hands had started shaking again, the adrenaline wearing off, reality crashing back in. She'd just committed career suicide, performed an invasive procedure without authorization, contradicted a senior physician, revealed information about her past she'd spent 8 weeks hiding. She was done. Dr. Vance's office was corner suite, windows overlooking the city. She gestured to a chair. Anna sat. Security stood by the door. The man in the suit took position by the window. Dr. Vance sat behind her desk, hands folded, and studied Anna for a long moment. 8 weeks, she finally said. You've been here 8 weeks. In that time, according to your file, you've been described as timid, hesitant, and, I'm quoting here, possibly not suited for emergency medicine. She paused. What I just witnessed doesn't match that description. Anna said nothing. So I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need a direct answer. Who are you? Anna's throat was dry. And don't say just a nurse. I've been doing this for 35 years. I know the difference between medical training and combat experience. What I just saw, that wasn't nursing school. That was muscle memory from repetition under fire. The man in the suit shifted slightly. Anna noticed his stance, feet shoulder width, weight balanced. Military or former military. She'd bet everything on it. Captain Anna Cole, she said quietly. Special Operations Combat Medic. 8 years active duty. Honorable discharge, 18 months ago. Dr. Vance's eyebrows rose. Special Operations. Yes, ma'am. And you've been working here, letting people treat you like you're incompetent for 2 months. Why? That was the question, wasn't it? How do you explain to someone who's never been to war that sometimes the hardest thing isn't surviving the war itself? It's surviving the peace afterward. How do you say that you wanted to be normal so badly you were willing to become invisible? That you thought if you made yourself small enough, quiet enough, you could outrun the ghosts? I wanted. Anna's voice cracked. She cleared her throat. I wanted to be someone else. Someone who didn't, who wasn't. Someone who hadn't seen what you've seen, Dr. Vance said softly. Anna nodded. There was a long silence. Then the man in the suit spoke for the first time. Captain Cole. His voice was formal. Official. Anna's spine straightened automatically. 8 years of conditioning. I'm Agent Marcus Webb, Department of Defense. I need to speak with you about patient 7B. Anna's blood went cold. Ma'am, Agent Webb continued, addressing Dr. Vance now. I'm going to need to ask you to step outside for a moment. This is my hospital, Dr. Vance said coolly. And she's my employee. Not anymore, she's not. Everyone turned. Dr. Richardson stood in the doorway, his face flushed with vindication. Dr. Vance, I'm formally recommending Nurse Cole's immediate termination. She performed an unauthorized procedure, violated protocol, and saved a man's life, Dr. Vance interrupted. That doesn't matter. She broke every rule we have. She's a liability. I want her. It's done, Dr. Vance said quietly. Anna's heart stopped. I'm sorry, Dr. Richardson said. Dr. Vance didn't look at Anna. Nurse Cole is terminated, effective immediately. Escort her out. The words were a punch to the gut. Anna had known it was coming, but hearing it still hurt. She stood slowly. I understand. Wait, Agent Webb said. He pulled out his phone, pressed a button. Cancel that order. Dr. Richardson sputtered. Excuse me? You can't just. Patient 7B isn't a civilian car accident victim, Webb said. He's a federal asset. And what Nurse Cole diagnosed? She's one of 3 people on this planet trained to recognize it. The room went completely still. I don't understand, Dr. Vance said. Webb looked at Anna. How did you know? Anna's mind was racing. Federal asset. Trained to recognize. That presentation, the specific pattern of internal trauma, the mechanism that didn't match standard civilian injury. The microseismic tremors, she said slowly. The pupillary response. The breathing pattern. That's not car accident trauma. That's blunt force overpressure with potential microparticle embolism. Webb nodded. From experimental concussive weapon. Close-range exposure. Anna's voice was steady now. I helped design the emergency protocol 3 years ago after a training accident killed 2 operators. The symptoms are specific. Delayed presentation. Looks stable until it doesn't. If you treat it like standard trauma, they die on the table. Jesus Christ, Dr. Vance whispered. Patient 7B was involved in a classified training exercise this morning, Webb said. The cover story was a car accident. We didn't know the exposure level was critical until... He looked at Anna. Until you diagnosed it. Dr. Richardson looked like he'd been slapped. So she's... He started. A decorated combat medic who's saved more lives than you've treated patients, Webb said flatly. And who just prevented a classified casualty that would have ended careers. He turned back to Anna. Captain Cole, we need you back. No. The word came out before Anna even thought about it. Webb frowned. This isn't a request. You're the... I said no. Anna's hands were shaking again, but her voice was firm. I left. I'm done. People are going to die without that expertise. Then train someone else. There's no time. Anna closed her eyes. Felt the weight of it, the impossible choice. The thing she'd been running from for 18 months. You can't save everyone. But you have to try. I'll consult, she said finally. I'll train your people. Write protocols, teach recognition, build the program. But I'm not going back into the field. Why not? Webb asked. Anna opened her eyes. Because I've already given enough. The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, Webb nodded. Acceptable. We'll draw up the contract. He left. Just like that. The door closed behind him, and suddenly it was just Anna, Dr. Vance, Dr. Richardson, and security in the room. Dr. Richardson looked at Anna like he was seeing her for the first time. You, he started. All this time you were? Terrified, Anna said quietly. Every day. Every loud noise. Every sudden movement. I wasn't weak, Dr. Richardson. I was surviving. There's a difference. He opened his mouth. closed it, then, without another word, turned and left. Dr. Vance stood. "You're not fired." "Ma'am, I said you were fired because I needed Richardson to leave," Dr. Vance said. "In reality, I'm offering you a position in our trauma training program. We need someone who knows what real trauma looks like. Someone who can teach residents that medicine isn't just protocols, it's pattern recognition, instinct, and trusting yourself even when everyone tells you you're wrong." Anna stared at her. "You want me to teach? I want you to make sure the next generation doesn't make the mistakes we made with you." Dr. Vance's expression softened. "And I want you to know that being broken doesn't mean you're useless. Sometimes the broken places are where the light gets in." Anna's vision blurred. She blinked hard. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. "Neither did I," Dr. Vance said. 20 years ago, I walked out of a field hospital in Bosnia and swore I'd never practice medicine again. But here I am. And here you are. So let's figure it out together." 3 months later, Anna stood in front of a lecture hall full of medical residents. 30 faces, some eager, some skeptical, all wondering who this nervous-looking woman was and why they should listen to her. Her hands were shaking, but she started talking anyway. "Most of you have been trained to trust your protocols," she said. "Your checklists, your imaging, your labs. And that's good. That's important. But I'm here to teach you something else." She clicked to the next slide. It showed patient 7B's initial presentation, the one Dr. Richardson had dismissed. "I'm here to teach you to trust the feeling in your gut when something's wrong. To speak up even when you're the most junior person in the room. To understand that confidence isn't the same thing as competence, and silence isn't the same thing as weakness." She looked out at the residents. "I'm here to teach you that sometimes the person who looks the most broken is actually the strongest one there." In the back of the lecture hall, Dr. Richardson sat quietly, taking notes. Sarah Jenkins was there too, no longer dismissive, but listening. And Tom, soft, kind Tom, sat in the front row and smiled. Anna took a breath. Her hands were still shaking, but she kept talking, because that's what survivors do. They take their trauma and turn it into purpose. They take their pain and transform it into protection for others. They walk through the fire and come out the other side not unscathed, but undeniable. Anna Cole walked into Northgate Regional Hospital invisible. She walked out a teacher, a consultant, a voice for those who couldn't speak. She walked out carrying her ghosts not as burdens, but as lessons. She walked out undeniable. And she never apologized for taking up space again. So let me ask you something. How many Anna Coles do you walk past every day? How many people do you see struggling, quiet, withdrawn, seemingly weak, and never stop to wonder why? We live in a world that worships confidence, that mistakes loudness for strength and silence for stupidity. We look at someone who's trembling and think fragile. We see someone who won't meet our eyes and think incompetent. But what if they're not? What if that quiet person in the corner has survived things that would break most of us? What if their silence isn't weakness? It's the sound of someone fighting a war you can't see. Anna's story is rare in its specifics, but universal in its truth. Trauma doesn't look like we think it does. It doesn't always come with anger or aggression. Sometimes it comes with silence, with shaking hands, with people making themselves invisible because invisible feels safer than seen. And here's the hard part, the part we don't like to admit. We are often the Dr. Richardsons of someone else's story. We judge. We dismiss. We decide who deserves respect based on how confident they seem, how loudly they speak, how easily they meet our eyes. And in doing so, we miss the extraordinary people right in front of us. But here's the hope. Anna found her voice again. Not because the trauma disappeared. It didn't. Not because she stopped being afraid. She didn't. But because she chose to transform her pain into purpose. To let her scars become her credentials. To teach others so they wouldn't have to carry what she carried alone. And that's available to all of us. Maybe you're Anna, struggling, silent, trying to survive. If so, know this. Your silence doesn't make you weak. Your survival makes you strong. And when you're ready, your voice will matter more than you know. Maybe you're Dr. Richardson, realizing you've judged someone unfairly. If so, know this. It's never too late to see people differently. To listen instead of dismiss. To recognize that strength comes in forms you weren't taught to recognize. Or maybe you're Dr. Vance, someone in a position to create space for broken people to become whole again. If so, use that power. Open doors. Build programs. Create environments where people don't have to choose between their trauma and their career. The next time you see someone struggling, pause. Ask yourself, what if they're not weak? What if they're just surviving something I couldn't imagine? What if their silence is the loudest scream I'll never hear? Anna Cole walked into a hospital invisible and walked out undeniable. But she didn't do it alone. She did it because one person, Dr. Vance, chose to see her. Really see her. Not as a liability, but as a human being carrying impossible weight who deserved a chance to put it down gently. Be that person for someone. Because you never know who you're walking past. You never know what battles are being fought behind eyes that won't meet yours. And you never know when your choice to pause, to listen, to see, might be the thing that saves someone's life. Not in a hospital, but in the quiet, desperate moments when they're deciding whether they're worth saving at all. They are. We all are. Even the invisible ones. Especially the invisible ones. Thank you for listening to Anna's story. If it moved you, share it. Someone needs to hear it today.